And this is just the very beginning in the effort to liberate this country from the migrant criminal threat. In the coming days, you're going to see a massive scale up in enforcement activities all across the country to dismantle these criminal networks. So not only is it going to be ICE engaging these raids, but also they're going to have support from their law enforcement partners in FBI, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshals. We're going to leverage the full power of federal law enforcement at President Trump's command and direction to save this country from this occupation.
All right, guys, so we are obviously still in the first week of the brand new Trump administration, which is honestly still very surreal and awesome to say out loud, like you're not living in a dream. This is real. Trump really did come back. But guys, we can officially report as of today that the ICE raids and deportations have indeed begun, right? This is step one of fulfilling the promise of mass deportations, which I still, again, don't understand why people are so mortified by. It's like, look, this is what we said we were going to do. The American people elected us off of our promise to do this, and now this is what we're doing. You know, it's just, I don't understand. Why is that such a crazy concept? And it's so funny because you hear these Democrats running around saying basically like the American people didn't vote for this. They voted for Trump to lower the price of eggs, not everything else. It's like, first of all, you're literally Democrats. You have Kamala Harris supporters trying to explain the political psychology of why we voted for Trump. No, don't lecture us on why we voted for Trump. You don't freaking know us, first of all. But secondly, on top of that, as we'll show you in a second, turns out the American people actually overwhelmingly, according to the polls, even including Democrats, support Trump's agenda on deportations. And by the way, let's just not forget, it's not like mass deportations were a quiet part of the Trump campaign. It's like, sure, was the economy the number one issue? Yes. But what was number two? Immigration. Okay, so let's not pretend as if anything is different there. No, the American people voted for this. They're getting this, and largely according to the polls, they are happy about this. But it's also worth noting, guys, that apparently in this first round of deportations, as Tom Homan said he was going to do, and it's probably smart, they're going to be starting with the high priority threats to the communities, right? So we're talking about people who are dangerous threats, they're violent, they have criminal records, etc. And I want you to remember that as we show you here today how local Democrat activists are trying to shelter and harbor illegal aliens, which is a federal crime, but nonetheless, okay, just keep that in mind. The people they're currently sheltering is not like, oh, you know, my gardener was here so long and it's so bad. No, we're talking about like gang members, violent people, people with criminal histories. This is who they're protecting. Keep that in mind. But first of all, here is White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller talking about how, again, mass deportations are starting to already be implemented. And this is just the beginning, according to him. Check it out.
Initial immigration raids have already arrested and removed some of the most vicious criminals in this country, including child pornography cases, homicide cases, sexual assault, attacks on children. And this is just the very beginning in the effort to liberate this country from the migrant criminal threat. In the coming days, you're going to see a massive scale up in enforcement activities all across the country to dismantle these criminal networks. So not only is it going to be ICE engaging these raids, but also they're going to have support from their law enforcement partners in FBI, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshals. We're going to leverage the full power of federal law enforcement at President Trump's command and direction to save this country from this occupation. You're also going to see, as you mentioned, the Department of Justice pursuing civil and, if necessary, criminal charges against anybody who shelters or harbors criminal aliens. That includes individuals in sanctuary cities who are harboring violent and dangerous criminals from federal law enforcement. The tables have turned, and now those who protect criminal aliens are going to face the legal consequences that exist in statute. And at the border, as you've mentioned, the military is en route. They are mobilizing active duty, National Guard, as well as a massive effort to engage in military construction along the southern border to impede and deny the entry of illegal aliens and to send anyone who crosses home, or if they've engaged in criminal activity, they also may face significant criminal prosecution. So every instrument, every lever of federal power is being deployed to crush the cartels, dismantle the gangs, seal off the border, halt the invasion, and send the illegals home.
Boom. Okay, so there you have it, and a lot to break down there, obviously. You know, you have the National Emergency Declaration, which, yes, the southern border is a national emergency. We're going to finally be deploying the military to the border like people have said we need to do for years. That's all great. But for the purposes of this video, I want to hone in on two things. Number one, what are, you know, in the first wave of deportations, are the type of illegal criminal aliens who are being targeted? We're talking about people who committed, you know, child pornography, sexual assault, abusing children, all of that type of stuff. And secondly, keep in mind this as well, the Trump administration is vowing to criminally prosecute on the federal level anyone who is found to be harboring and sheltering illegal aliens from federal law enforcement, which, let's again remember, is a crime. And they're applying that meaning to surround sanctuary cities, right? You know, essentially saying what sanctuary cities are doing is a violation of federal crimes. So again, you have this, again, the literal worst people in our society who are illegal aliens are being deported at the current moment. Democrats and left-wing activists are trying so hard to protect these people, which we'll show you in a second. Like literally they're making this massive effort to resist the deportations, protect these people, keep these literal, like again, like we just heard who's being deported, keep these people in our communities. And again, in doing so, they may be facing actual criminal prosecution from the Trump administration, which they certainly should be. But take a listen, because this is now what's happening apparently in Chicago as these ICE raids begin to get announced. And again, I just want to remind these Democrat activists, what you are doing is a federal crime, and the Trump administration, by all accounts, is not playing games. So, you know, just keep that in mind as you break U.S. law. But take a listen.
Chicago's immigrant community on edge tonight as Michelle Gallardo reports activists and elected officials are canvassing neighborhoods, letting people know their rights should ICE come knocking.
Up and down Cermak Avenue today, business after business prominently displayed the same flyer, "Don't open for ICE." A few blocks away at the Little Village Arch, a handful of activists braved the sub-zero wind chills to rally against the Trump administration's stated plans to conduct mass deportation raids in Chicago.
We've been out here since 5 in the morning, educating our community, educating our people that they have rights.
Among those canvassing the neighborhood was 22nd Ward Alderperson Michael Rodriguez, who spent the morning passing out informational flyers, instructing people what to say should ICE come knocking. There is most certainly fear. The executive director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights telling us their hotline has been inundated with calls.
From January 1st to January 19th, we saw 800 calls. But on January 20th alone, we saw over 400 calls.
Border Czar Tom Homan saying in an interview on Fox Business today,
the president's been clear, I've been clear, that right out of the gate, we're looking for public safety threats. ICE agents are out there doing that now.
It's funny. I'm really surprised that that reporter even left that little soundbite of Tom Homan in the story at the end, because he basically says it all, right? We're looking for violent criminal threats to your community. And what these activists are doing is basically saying, no, please keep violent criminal threats in our community. It's insane. Like, it's completely deranged. But it'd be one thing if it were a bunch of crazy hippies in the streets just protesting in favor of criminals or homeless people or whatever, because this is always what they do, right? But I think it's even more telling, guys, that, as she points out, you have elected officials in these local Democrat cities like Chicago who are joining in on these efforts. They're literally knocking on the doors of likely illegal immigrants, telling them essentially, here's how you evade ICE, here's how you basically circumvent federal immigration authority. And as we'll point out here in a second too, this is actually going on in public schools, right? Public schools, which are paid for by your tax dollars. And by the way, it doesn't matter where you live. Okay, let's point that out, because the federal government funds basically all the public school systems to some degree in this country. So you have public schools teaching children and parents, like, here's how you avoid ICE raids, right? Basically instructing the public on, you know, how to circumvent federal immigration authority. And again, this may be happening in deep blue states, but everybody is paying for this. This is absolutely insane. We're using government resources to encourage illegal immigrants to circumvent the laws of the federal government. It's insane, but this is exactly what is happening, not just in Chicago, but also in Democrat cities like Denver. Take a listen to this local story from the Denver News.
As President Trump takes office, School districts around the state are preparing for what they'll do if immigration officers show up at their schools.
I've met with all leaders.
Denver Public Schools Superintendent Alex Marrero is telling principals if a government official shows up at one of their schools, don't let them in. He's instructed staff to use the intercom and find out what agency they're with, why they're there, and if they have a warrant. If they have a warrant, ask for a copy. If they don't, tell them to leave.
Yeah, so again, guys, we literally have our public school systems in on this, right? How to essentially protect illegal immigrants from federal immigration authority. I have a very simple solution, okay, to the problem. And obviously, you know, people who are, again, sheltering and harboring illegal aliens should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But even on top of that, you want an even faster, easier solution? Okay, well, in that case, if you're not going to comply with the federal government being a public school funded by taxpayer dollars, very simple solution. No more federal funds to any school district who is doing this sanctuary policy stuff, okay? And even, by the way, this would even maybe even make more sense, right? People might say, oh, that's cruel, because what about the kids who have nothing to do with this and they're legal American citizens? Okay, even better, then here you go, right? Because currently the federal government basically gives funds based on the number of kids you have in a school, right? The number of kids you have equates to the amount of funding you're going to get. Okay, so very simple, here you go. We're only going to fund your schools for the number of legal citizens, and in some case, maybe like permanent legal resident kids that you have. Okay, no illegal aliens. So if they cannot prove their citizenship, we're not giving you the funding for those kids. Watch how fast in these blue Democrat school districts, when they start running out of money to pay for the educations of the illegal kids, that suddenly things start to change. Okay, because this is ridiculous. And by the way, before anyone tries to hurl accusations that everything that's happening right now is cruel or it lacks compassion, I first of all want to remind everyone, we're literally removing at the current moment in the first couple weeks here, right, public safety threats. It is cruel, it is incompassionate, and it's precisely, by the way, a reason why Joe Biden was ultimately defeated in the 2024 election, including his, fake predecessor, Kamala Harris, is because, yes, it is cruel and incompassionate to keep public safety threats in your community. But I also want to remind people, and let's not forget that we have a governing mandate from the American people to do this. Not just because Trump was elected, but because, as you can see here, according to YouGov, okay, YouGov, which is a very left-biased pollster, historically speaking. Check this out. Current support for arresting and deporting millions of illegal immigrants, aka support for mass deportations, 53% support, only 38% opposed. That means that a 15-point majority of American citizens support Trump's agenda on mass deportations. You could honestly argue it is a single most popular policy from the American people. And I think there's precisely a reason why, which is, look, it's just honestly the truth here. The American people are tired of it. You know, we constantly are told that, hey, if you support enforcing U.S. immigration laws, that's so mean because you lack compassion. You know, what about this? What about that? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, honestly, like when I was even younger, I sort of thought, man, maybe there's a middle ground solution, because I think 10 years ago, when the country was in a different place, maybe there was room for the left to try to reach a compromise fix on illegal immigration, right? Some type of amnesty bill or dreamer thing or something. But I think honestly what has happened and why we have a governing mandate to do this is they have pushed so far that the American people are now coming back and saying, oh, you talk about compassion. Where's the compassion for us? You're literally keeping public safety threats in our community, okay? Like, the American people have been beaten down by a broken political establishment for years now, okay? And you see the socioeconomic state of this country, the average reality for so many people. And they're told they're supposed to sit here and lecture about how, our government may have no compassion for the ordinary law-abiding citizen, but it's your duty to have compassion for someone who's here in this country illegally and actually has no right to be here. It's done, right? People are done with it. This is why Trump is president. I hope he fully follows through on the promise of mass deportations. It looks like he is. That's great to see, because again, you can sit around and cry about it or try to make excuses for it, but ultimately, again, you guys push so far. It's your fault, okay? It's the left's fault. They push so far in this issue. The American people are just like, nope, we're done. We're done. This is happening. We're voting for Trump. We want him to do this according to the polls. Cry and seethe about it. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.